I'm going to do my best Steve Carell impression from The Office. Stay calm. Stay effing calm. I promise you, Mets fans, they will make moves from now up until 6 p.m. tomorrow for the MLB trade deadline. How's it going, everybody? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest show here at WardyNYM. We have a big discussion, all the latest news and rumors regarding the team in Queens, what's happening around the MLB. How concerned should we be at all with the New York Mets right now? I'm going to tell you right now, you should not be concerned. So all the schmucks out there, every single player the Mets are prioritizing right now, folks, are still out there. There are some more dominoes that probably still need to fall before the Mets can make their moves. And it really is headlined by, in a lot of part, I would say, the San Diego Padres that I'll be getting into shortly. We have a plethora of topics to discuss. And today's trade deadline eve special of a live stream here in WardyNYM. This will be the first of two at minimum on the day, just live shows. We have one right now. We'll have one again after hopefully Mad Max goes at minimum 7 shutty with upwards of 10 plus Ks against his former team in the Washington Nationals, assuming no deals happen during that time. Of course, if it does during the live show here, then I'll change the thumbnail, throw up the stats because I probably have them preset for you guys. We'll deep dive and react there. If it doesn't happen during the live show, if it doesn't happen at all today, that's probably fine because, again, the time is still in the Mets' favor here. There's a lot of leverage game going on. It's a matter of who's going to blink first, not just with them, but with the Red Sox, with the Chicago Cubs, and some other teams that they have interest in. Martin, thank you so much for the $2 donation. Where move? I don't know necessarily what you mean by that, but if you can elaborate a little bit further, I'll do my best. But guys, I want to know everyone's initial reaction right now in the live show. What's your opinion on what's happening right now in the MLB? Are you concerned at all? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's no reason at all for us fans to be concerned. I love what Billy Epler is doing. He's showing that, hey, I understand that you guys like Mark Vientos, and while I personally am not against probably when Mark Vientos at the right price, even if they're rentals, if they can be X factors and win a championship, no fan and their mother is going to complain about parting ways with a Vientos that profiles best as a DH long-term in his career. He really reminds me at best, he could be a Nick Castellanos, start his career at third base and win the corner outfield. I love Vientos. Don't get me wrong. But I think the point that the Mets are trying to do here, as I discussed in my podcast that came out on the channel a couple hours ago with Anthony Recker, former New York Met, MLB Network analyst and Apple TV analyst, and Joe Serralo for Serralo Sports Talk Radio, his podcast. We all discussed how it really feels like the Mets are just doing a leverage game right now. You know, we see the Mets come out there and say that, yeah, Mark Vientos, we're going to do an internal option if we don't part. If we don't get a deal done with the Cubs or the Red Sox, if you guys don't drop your prices, that's fine. We'll stay in house. I don't believe that nonsense for one bit. And of course, if that does transpire, then I will 1000% come out and say that I was completely flat out wrong. However, for a Mets team that's trying to do special things this year, I'm going to go on a limb and say the same reason why they haven't brought up Vientos so far this year, because they don't want to hinder his trade value should he get caught up to the Mets and not do well prior to the trade deadline. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, yeah, the Mets are not going to bank on a Mark Vientos with zero MLB experience to come in and be a lefty killer like he has been in AAA, but guaranteed that he will be at the MLB level with split time with Vogie. Why I wouldn't mind that, this is not the time for the Mets to experiment. I think most fans and the organization itself realizes that. So it's a leverage game right now. They're going to just wait to see exactly if one team is finally going to start to drop in prices. And more than anything, I did see a donation I want to get to here quick, then I'll advance further on my thoughts. But overall, I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy with what the Mets are doing right now. Every guy that has been traded so far, other than Trey Mancini, are guys that the Mets haven't even been linked to, at least not for a while. Mancini, there's been a clear, obvious direction that the Mets have shifted focus from Mancini to bigger packages in the JD Martinez's and the Christian Vazquez's of the world. And of course, the big one of them all that I have a lot to say about right now, and the likes of Wilson Contreras and David Robertson. But guys, do me a favor for your boy for upwards of 700 live viewers right now. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get 300 plus likes by the end of the live show. We're just a couple hundred subs away from 17K on the channel, guys. Make sure to smash those buttons. Thank you so much in advance. Dave says Yankees get Montas and Trevino for nothing. Dave, that's more the Oakland A's doing than anything. Let me say this for a second. Let's pivot to that trade for a minute, right? The Yankees, they lose out on Luis Castillo. Why? Because, of course, the Reds wanted at minimum one on Peraza or their other shortstop prospect. I don't know why I'm blanking right. Volpe, right? I understood that. Castillo gets dealt. And literally, Seattle gives up the entire farm for him. They're number 1, they're number 3, they're number 5, and they're number 44 prospect. Phenomenal win-win trade. The Reds really did the best that they possibly could for one more year of control of Castillo. Now you see her with Montas. This trade upsets me a little bit just because Waldichuk is a really good prospect. He's her number 5 prospect. He's a flame-throwing southpaw. I think he's going to fit in great in the Oakland A's organization. But outside of that, they didn't get anything too expensive for a Montas that is not drastically far behind value-wise than for Luis Castillo right now. And you look at these two deals, they are quite drastic. And for an Oakland A's team, I was hoping would hold out and say, hey, we didn't trade with you for Matt Olson in the offseason. We're not going to trade with you with Montas now. However, they did bite. I don't know. I guess I would assume that there were just no better offers on the table at this juncture for Montas. Maybe the A's overstepped things a bit by not taking a deal with the Yanks or with the White Sox or with the Twins back in the offseason heading into the 2022 year. However, Montas and Luis Trevino, who's a really, really solid reliever and has multiple years of control still. Montas isn't a free agent until after next season. He'll surely extend there, I'd imagine. That was a great get for the Yankees, and they got exactly what they wanted, landing a full-fledged frontline starter. Because let's face it, Garrett Cole, even though he has been a stud at times, he also isn't the opposite of clutch. I think he's a clown. You guys know my opinion on Cole. So they definitely want more depth with uncertainties that they've had to the latter half of their rotation the past month plus. And they surely get that at Montas. It was definitely a win trade for the Yankees, as much as that's a tough pill for me to say. I mean, Yankees tend to do these things all the time. I don't know what it is with teams just being willing to part with guys for cheaper than maybe we could do elsewhere. But again, if they evaluate the market and that was the biggest deal out there, so be it. Before we get into the stuff on the Mets, because that is the bulk of today's discussion, I did want to expand further, everybody, on what also happened today, because we saw Josh Hader, a big one. Hader, there's been a lot of rumblings that Hader would be dealt sometime soon. He really has not had a good year. Hader has a 4 ERA. Of course, his expected numbers are better. Hader, a guy that doesn't like to pitch outside of that closer role, outside of that one inning, which has limited his value to a degree. A Brewers team that's been selling off on Hader basically since he hit, actually being an effective reliever multiple years ago, but going back to like 2017, 2018. Now you see Hader, he's traded to the San Diego Padres, and we have a lot to say on the San Diego Padres because I'm a firm believer that the Padres are an X factor into the Mets and their decision making. And before we get there, what was this deal? The Padres, they got Josh Hader. He will come in as their closer now because they just trade away their respective closer that they acquired from the Minnesota Twins in the beginning of the year, and Taylor Rogers. Taylor Rogers, who I love, I think he's a strong southpaw, hasn't had a phenomenal year when you look at his expected numbers, but still not bad at all. Rogers is now going to come in and basically be in that setup spot for, I'd imagine, Devin Williams, who can hone things in perfectly fine as the closer role there in the Milwaukee. Then they, of course, acquired some solid prospects. Ruiz, who even though that, yes, he's a 28 level prospect for the Padres, is having a phenomenal year, stole 60 bags in AAA, has made his MLB debut now. I saw Dinelson Lamet, and also, what's his name? Grasser, I think it's Grasser, Potato, who I'm pretty sure was the number 7 prospect or somewhere not far off from that from the Padres. An interesting deal. I think the Padres can come out to win this one. I think that this can benefit the Brewers still now and a team that's trying to win while selling a little bit, knowing that they cannot keep Hader long-term. It definitely fits the mold for both sides to a degree. But then the big one, a one that I know that a lot of you guys probably have an opinion on, is Trey Mancini. Now, Mancini, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like a lot of people thought that Mancini, including myself, was going to land with the Mets just over the past week. It seemed like that things were really picking up, that the Mets were getting closer to a deal. However, that is the farthest thing from the truth, as Mancini was dealt in a 3-team trade now, in which the Tampa Bay Rays were also involved. I don't have on top in front of me right now all the assets that went the other way, but Mancini goes to the Houston Astros, and I got to tell you guys, I have zero problem with this. Would I like Mancini on the Mets? Absolutely. I think a lot of Mets fans would. However, when you look at what the Mets are currently involved in, what their focus is, it's on bats that are potentially better than Mancini, can give the Mets more options, especially in a trade package-wise. Now, what we have known about the Baltimore Orioles is that they've had a reluctance to trade the relievers that are controllable. The Jorge Lopez's, the Dylan Tates, the Perez's of the world. All these guys for a Baltimore Orioles team, a couple of games out of the playoffs right now, are just in that playoff mix. They're focused on the future, and they have, again, relievers that are having big years and want to keep them for next year and the years going forward, assumably. So with not that package not being present, with Mancini, also, his biggest thing that was appealing to Mets fans, guys, Felix Bautista is another big name to your right, Brandon, in the chat. Trey Mancini would have made a lot more sense for the Mets if they did not acquire Tyler Naquin. And the reason why I say that is Mancini can profile as a corner outfielder in right field or in left if you really need him to. Is he known for his glove? No, but he can handle it better than plenty of other players in the league. Mancini's a first baseman, a right fielder, and primarily a DH. Now, Buck Showalter loves the idea of having versatility in his lineup, but for the Mets to acquire Tyler Naquin, as soon as they acquired Naquin, it really felt like Trey Mancini was not going to happen then, because the biggest appeal to Mancini wasn't as much his bat, even though it's really solid, but more so the versatility than a JD Martinez or some others that are solely a DH type. You're not going to see Martinez playing at first. You're surely not going to see him play in the corner outfield. So that was the biggest enticement with Mancini. So from the Orioles' reluctance to part with relievers that are controllable, and with Mancini being a guy that, again, he has that versatility, but you don't need that now with the Mets having Naquin and Vogelbach, 2 bats at Rick against righties. I'll be coming off the bench in a platoon role. It just makes sense why the Mets are really honed in now on the JD Martinez's, the Christian Vazquez type packages, the Wilson Contreras, the David Robertson type packages. I do see a donation or two. I want to address that here in the show, folks, and then we'll go forward. But yeah, I'm not, from that side's perspective, I'm not bothered at all by Mancini going to the Astros. They land a nice bat that can be in the DH/first base position. Can even throw them in the corner if they really need to, even though I don't expect them to. However, what this does tell me as a Mets fan, not saying it's going to happen because I know Mike Rizzo is an absolute CUNT and does not want to do any moves with the Mets. Josh Bell, in my opinion, felt like an absolute lock to land with the Houston Astros. The Astros looked like a heavy favorite for Josh Bell for a while. So now that Bell's spot is taken by Mancini, the Astros are not going to be landing Bell now. Where is Josh Bell going to go? I can't imagine that his market is completely ginormous to the extent of other players out there for a guy that is mainly a DH, can play first. So while I still do not think I am missing Scott F. Ross on the MLB trades, that's just because it wasn't to the same magnitude as the ones here. I focused on the biggest one today. F. Ross, the biggest thing for him is he's having a good year. 5 years of control, whoop-de-doo. But the Yanks' bigger move is Montas and Trevino. That's why I have it on the graphic. But Josh Bell is the most interesting guy for me right now. What's going to happen with Bell? Where is he going to go? You know, and while I don't think the Mets are going to land Bell, I will say if there's any potential still there, the potential just increased a little bit. You have to wonder if maybe the Mets would consider circling back to the Nats if they haven't already by saying, hey, we see that Bell looks like he was going to go to the Astros, and now it's not happening. What is your asking price? Can we get a deal done that makes sense for both sides? Or are you going to stay stubborn and have it in division tax? If I'm a betting man, I'm going to go with the latter here, but there is still potential. So Josh Bell is a very interesting name that I'm curious to see where he is going to land. But before I do that, let me get to some donations, then I'll advance forward because I got a lot to say about Andrew Chafin. I got a lot to say about the Red Sox, the Cubs, and everything going around with the Mets here in the MLB with other moves happening. Trust me, guys, you got nothing to be worried about. The Mets will make moves. It's just a matter of when. Time's a ticking. We know that, but they are in good hands to make moves happen. The exact kind of moves that they're looking for, it's all out there, and we have a lot to talk about regarding Juan Soto and the San Diego Padres. So let me get into that shortly. However, Dave, thank you so much for the $5 donation. $2 donation, I should say. Since A's don't ask for much, why not Murphy Puck? I just don't think the Mets have that interest, honestly. I really don't. I think the Mets have focus on bigger names elsewhere. I think it comes down to that, Dave. I think the Mets want to do more than a Murphy Puck type duo, which wouldn't be bad. For sure, I wouldn't mind that. Murphy is automatically the best catcher the Mets would have offensively right now, and Puck would automatically bring a really rock-solid southpaw in this bullpen. However, these guys are controllable. I think that control will be reluctance as to why the Mets would go down that route. More team control means more pricey, you know, so it makes sense. Alex Soto, love the name. Thank you so much for the donation, my man. Hype in the chat to you. Hype in the chat to Alex for the $2 dono right there. Eric, my man. Eric, thank you so much for the dono. He's been a long-time subscriber, friend on the channel. Not worried, calm before storm. Vientos only goes for a player with control beyond this season. Okay, with Trey Mauricio, JDM Contreras, what about a Man-Supply Walker deal from Arizona? Any other surprise options not considered? Arizona is interesting, but I think the Mets don't have interest in Man-Supply. I would be a little surprised if that happens at this juncture, only because Man-Supply is someone that has not looked good the past month and a half. He looked rock solid, was soaring in the first half of the year, was unhittable for the lefty. But again, a guy that's having an anomaly of a year, his first real breakout year in his young career, and again, has not looked great as of late. I don't expect the Mets to land someone in Man Supply Walker. Thank you so much for that donation, Eric. I think if there's any other surprise moves we could potentially see on the horizon for the Mets, personally, I would still keep an eye on the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds have bats that would be feasible for the Mets if they say as a fallback option, but wanted lefty killers. Brandon Drury, Kyle Farmer, how the hell are you doing? Even with their inflated numbers in Cincinnati, they still rake against lefties. And also, they have a reliever that, wouldn't hurt if he landed on the New York Mets, and that is Edwin Diaz's brother and Alexi Diaz. I think that is something that could warrant giving up a prospect for Diaz, who has multiple years of control. I don't expect it to happen, but if you want me to go a little bit in left field and throw something out there that hasn't been discussed as much, the Reds are a team that I will always keep an eye on for a team that is still selling. Eric, thank you for that donation. But guys, let's talk about for a second Andrew Chafin, because Chafin is a big topic of discussion. In case you guys don't know, I effing love Andrew Chafin. I have had my eyes glued on Andrew Chafin for easily a year and a half now. Brendan, thank you so much for the $5 dono. Hype in the chat to you, my friend. Andrew Chafin's a stud, guys. I remember like it was yesterday at last year's trade deadline. Leading up to it, I made content about potential fits for the Mets. I loved Andrew Chafin. My dream trade for the Mets a year ago at last year's trade deadline was Chris Bryant and Andrew Chafin. What did the Mets go out and do? They acquired both a position player and a pitcher from the Cubs, but it was two different players than I was hoping for. Not that I was against Baez at the time. I just thought Bryant brought more versatility. No less, we got Javi Baez and Trevor Williams instead. And Williams loved Williams. Baez, of course, walked in free agency. Completely understood that. Chafin, however, got traded to the Oakland A's at last year's deadline after having a phenomenal start to his 2021 season in Chicago. Did phenomenal as well with Oakland down the stretch. Signed a 2-year deal this offseason with the Detroit Tigers. And before people get out there and say, oh my goodness, why didn't Billy do this move in the offseason? I don't think you can give much criticism there because the Mets did pursue Andrew Chafin in the offseason. However, I do remember reading to an extent that there were Bleav that Chafin had a connection for the Michigan area, which helped warrant his decision to land with the Tigers. It wasn't about winning. If it was about winning, he wouldn't have went to Detroit at this juncture where they currently are at as a club. So Chafin, who's on a multi-year deal right now, having another phenomenal year for the New York Mets, and it's been not the New York Mets, hopefully soon for the New York Mets, right? I hope I'm foreshadowing here. But Chafin feels like someone that is going to end up landing in Queens. I think the likelihood is great. I'm knocking on wood. I'm not trying to jinx it. But Chafin's the guy. If you want specifically a southpaw in this bullpen, if that is what you're looking for, there are not many better options out there with not just his current contract situation, but also how effective he has been than Andrew Chafin so far this year. Again, Chafin is not a free agent until 2024. Not a problem. I like the fact that he has another year of control, honestly. And Chafin, a 2.5-year rate for the southpaw this year in 32 innings, 37 appearances, a 2.27 expected ERA, a 2.21 FIP, a 3.15 expected FIP. Guys, what is so important about Andrew Chafin? A couple things. You evaluate not just him, but the other relievers that the Detroit Tigers have. I would love Andrew Chafin. I would love a Michael Fulmer. Bring him back to Queens. I wouldn't be against it. I would even love a Gregory Soto from Detroit. He's the young flamethrower of a southpaw that can touch in the high 90s, has a couple of years of control. However, he'll be more expensive. It's clear that the Mets are certainly not interested in parting ways with top prospect, especially for, say, a young reliever that has control. Even in this scenario like Soto, it does not feel likely. Chafin just checks the bill as a guy that, again, has been consistent for multiple years now, can come in as a shutdown southpaw for them, something that they haven't had, of course, since Aaron Loop's anomaly of a 2021 campaign. And the beauty about Chafin more than anything is that he is in a class of his own in comparison to Fulmer and Soto. This guy actually knows how to command the strike zone. What's been the biggest gripe for Michael Fulmer and Andrew Chafin this year, folks? They don't know how to hit the strike zone if it smacked them across the face. They are both piss poor this year for the most part when commanding their walk rate, especially walks per 9. Andrew Chafin, he's the opposite. Chafin knows how to command the strike zone, and he's striking out a phenomenal rate at 10.97 K per 9 to 2.81 walks per 9. That's far greater than what we're seeing with Fulmer and Soto, and like the 4+ are close to right now. So out of all the options, both value on contract and what they're currently bringing, Andrew Chafin is the guy for the Mets when evaluating things right now. And I really, really do hope that they end up laying him. I do apologize, guys, if my graphics are a little, it looks like it's a little laggy right now. I don't know why that is, because they're not even telling me that I'm skipping frames in my OBS. So I do apologize if I'm a little laggy for a minute. Hopefully it comes back. Just bear with me. Let me see if I delete this, if that'll help things at all. Hopefully it does. Just give me 1 second, everybody. Hold on. Okay, I think we're getting a little bit better. Okay, all right, I think we're getting better now. But yeah, I like Andrew Chafin. It looks like the Mets are a front runner for him as well, guys. Both them and the White Sox have been heavily in on Andrew Chafin today, as reported by, yes, Ken Rosenthal. So it'll be interesting to see how the Andrew sweepstakes come about. If I'm a betting man, I think the Mets. If the Mets are going to land anyone, I think Andrew Chafin is right towards the top of the list. And he could very well be the first domino to fall for the Mets in making moves. I hope it happens. I love Andrew Chafin. Bring that man to Queens, especially in this scenario where the Mets cannot land David Robertson because Contreras and Robertson either get dealt elsewhere or the asking price stays too high. This is why I like the Mets weighing their options here. Tigers have those relievers. Andrew Chafin has always been the tip of the top of my list on who guys I would personally prefer. The Mets have had reported interest in Chafin going back to upwards of a month now. And here we are again advancing these talks. They've been in continued talks today, as a matter of fact. So, Andrew Chafin, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on Chafin. I think that he is most certainly a phenomenal fit for this Mets bullpen for what they need right now. Again, if you can't land Robertson, especially, Chafin's the absolute next bet. Maybe you can land both of them, but I do know at minimum the Mets are going to land one really strong reliever, and Chafin is very much in that group of guys that would certainly not just fit the bill, but get the job done. So, before I talk a lot about the Red Sox and the Cubs, because that's going to take up the majority of the discussion, guys, also, we'll be live for the next hour or so. I'd imagine that'll wrap things up right around when the Mets game starts today, or at least close to, maybe a little after. Depends on how we're feeling in the show to my roughly 1,000 viewers. Thank you guys so much for that. Continue to smash that like and subscribe on. As we're going over all the latest Mets news and rumors, guys, of course, also make sure to let me know if there's any actual news that happens. Feel free to tag me on Twitter so we can announce it live on the show. That's at WardyNYM on Twitter, the same thing that you have here on YouTube. But let's talk about the San Diego Padres, because the Padres made a big move today, landing one of the best relievers in baseball and Josh Hader. Anomaly of a season aside, Hader is a stud. He's a strikeout king. We know that. However, what we saw in that Padres deal was that no assets that would assumably be in the deal to land Juan Soto were parted with in landing Josh Hader for AJ Preller and the San Diego Padres. And what's been reported by Ken Rosenthal and many others is that Preller is a madman right now. I'm sure that he's absolutely looking like as ADHD head as you can imagine, having a big drawing board, probably having 5 phones on. Preller, who absolutely flopped the worst among all GMs in last year's trade deadline, is trying to do the complete opposite right now and take his team over the top to be better than the Dodgers there in the NL West. And in order to do that, he's all in on Juan Soto right now. And whether they land Soto or not will be indicative on a lot. In case you guys don't know, a big reason why a lot of moves have not happened yet, a bigger dominoes offensively, both in the NL and the AL, is because of Juan Soto. Once Soto's domino falls, whether that means he's traded or that the Nationals announce we are not trading him by this year's deadline, it's going to naturally be difficult for teams that are weighing other options outside of Soto as fallback plans to then make their decisions. So AJ Preller, it's really interesting what the Padres are doing right now, because they aren't just focused heavily on Soto, as are that being the likes of the St. Louis Cardinals have made a heavier push as well. See the same thing with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are always lurking. Wouldn't surprise me by any stretch if the Dodgers came in and landed Soto, as much as that would piss me off. But what we do know is that if the Padres do not land Juan Soto, either because he goes elsewhere or because he stands pat, AJ Preller will not be done with his moves. He wants to, of course, acquire 1 or 2 big premier bats. And what do they need? Not far off from the Mets. They need more consistency at the catching position. They really, really like Wilson Contreras. They really like, Happ as well. So if Soto doesn't happen for San Diego, there's a great chance that they are going to go all in and completely overspend for the likes of Contreras and Happ. That's exactly the issue right now. I think that's why the Cubs are staying high with their price, because they know AJ Preller will, of course, go farther than he probably should just because he's in such a win-now stage. The Padres have the assets. They're willing to completely deplete the farm if they really are going all in this year. And I respect that to a degree. Preller's been really off with his deals before. He's also been right. I mean, the Padres are a team that has built really good farms over the years, but it has struggled with development other than, the anomalies of a Tatis that they acquired from the Chicago White Sox, and he just became one of the MLB's best players other than his injuries. And Tatis is coming back. He's going to be starting to rehab his time, and potentially as soon as this weekend. So you look at the Padres now, and that is really going to be indicative of a lot on what the Mets do. Now, how long are the Mets going to stand here with this poker face? How long are the Mets going to say, okay, we're going to see these prices drop. We're not going to budge. Who's going to blink first? I really, really believe that Preller and Soto, everything going on there is the biggest X factor as to why we haven't seen those dominoes fall yet. We see Juan Soto and Josh Bell, of course, in tonight's lineup facing off against the Mets. The same thing with JD Martinez and Christian Vazquez for the Boston Red Sox, respectively. So it's exciting. It's interesting to see how this is going to play out. But one thing is certain. If the Padres in this hypothetical don't get Soto, right, for whatever reason, and they pivot and they go all in on Contreras and Happ, then that gives the Mets their clear focus, which is what they are on right now. It's been reported the Mets have a really heavy focus on the Red Sox at this juncture. They really like JD Martinez. They know about his back spasms, but they also know that for what JD's role would be very Marcana-esque, playing every 2 or 3 days in a series usually. Make sure he's not playing every single day. Vogelback, the Mets have quickly learned they can trust him against right-handed pitching, which is what he's known for. So you can have Vogie at minimum starting 1 of 3 games and then JD taking over the other 2. When I look at the Mets right now, they're well aware on JD and the slump he's had. He's been hitting the bat better as of late. Ball, I should say. They really like Christian Vazquez. So the Mets have options. If the Cubs price stays high or if they get dealt to the Padres, you zone in on the Red Sox. That is where you go all in. And that's where a deal price-wise is probably more feasible than the Cubs at this juncture. However, the Astros, it's been reported over the past couple of days, the Astros really like Christian Vazquez. And what I've seen through The Athletic, Ken Rosenthal and others, is that you see that the Astros really want to address the backstop. They've shown interest in Willson Contreras. However, the belief is that they are more focused on a backup type catcher, a guy of a lesser degree to someone such as Willson Contreras. So that's why they really like Vazquez, because Vazquez can be 1A, 1B with him and Maldonado. It makes sense there. So should Vazquez be dealt from Boston to the Astros prior to the Mets making moves and prior to Contreras being dealt anywhere, then the Mets naturally would say, okay, our big focus here is either JD Martinez and landing bat and maybe not doing the catcher at all, or focusing heavily still on Contreras and Robertson. So they have a plethora of options still on the table. Nothing has changed. I think, if anything, the market is now more in the Mets' favor than what it was 24 hours ago. I think Trey Mancini as well. You have to wonder Josh Bell, his availability, and where he may potentially land. The Mets are in great hands with what they're doing right now. I'm not concerned at all. You just see here, though, that yes, the Mets have a complete reluctance to part with prospect capital. It's been widely reported. I'll say it once again. I do not think the Mets will completely not be willing to part with prospects. I think that they will for a price, especially if they really, really want to get a deal done. Maybe they get another piece thrown in there that makes sense for them. But more than anything, the Mets, this is a leverage game, okay? I respect the leverage game. The Mets are coming out and making a statement by saying, hey, we are not the New York Mets from 2021 Chicago Cubs. We're not Zach Scott and Stan Yelerson run. We're not Brody Van Wagenen run and Wilpons run. We are Steve Cohen and Billy Epler run, first and foremost. We are trying to sit here and make a statement. We have all the assets that you would want and need, especially Boston. What do they want? They want MLB caliber players along with potentially prospect and Vientos. Vientos, if you can get him out of that deal, maybe give them a Khalil Lee, which would make sense for Boston. Funny enough, Khalil Lee was part of that 3-team trade when you had the Kansas City Royals trade with Ben Attendee with the Red Sox. So Lee, he would, I could actually see it happening where he landed with the Red Sox. It wouldn't hurt for them if they had depth. I mean, they could use any potential offensive bat option next year over Jackie Bradley Jr., who is performing offensively exactly like I thought he would. He's defensively good. That's it at this juncture of his career. But going back now to these discussions here, when you see what the Red Sox are doing and what they're asking, the Mets are just in a spot where they certainly have assets. It's been reported by Jim Bowden and others that they really, really like someone like Dom Smith. We've known this. I've discussed it so many times here on the channel. Dom, for whatever reason, and I guess it makes sense for Chaim Bloom, evaluates Dom and says, hey, we have potential of getting a guy, if we can get him back to his 2020 self or similar, can give you 20-plus bombs a year, can hit you for a high average, can hit for opposite field, and can be that lefty power bat that we have been lacking in our lineup for the past couple years. We know that the Red Sox have been righty heavy thanks to the likes of JD Martinez, also Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts, and now Trevor Story when he's healthy. So they're very righty heavy with the big boppers in their lineup. And Dom, who does not have any home run ball at all, he hasn't hit a home run, MLB caliber home run in over a year. Regardless, Chaim Bloom really likes him. So give them Dom, give them JD Davis, Literally, throw them all in there. Give them a Thomas Sapucki, who's done great now as a starter turn reliever as of late in AAA. Give them a Khalil Lee. I mean, there's so many ways that you can go by giving young controllable assets without potentially giving up Vientos. It really is just a matter of who's going to blink first here. I really think the same can be said about the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are a team that is not in a win now stage. They're in a retool / a rebuild. They really like Dom Smith. I bet that they can even get production out of JD Davis as well. These guys make sense. And this is actually, in hindsight, why it may have been best for the Mets looking back that they didn't part with JD or Dom during the offseason for just, a bag of baseballs. Because looking at the situation now, these guys, while they won't necessarily be the biggest factor in a deal, can have more of a factor in a trade and landing some of these more prominent players that are rentals than you'd initially imagine heading into the season. So there's a lot of options here. I know that for certain. 1200, thank you so much for the donation. He says, everyone but Sapucki is expendable. 1200, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Let me see here if there is, let's see if there is any other donations in the chat before we go forward here in the show. We're a half hour in. Thank you guys so much for that. Like I said, we'll wrap things up probably top 7 p.m., depending on how the show is here. And hopefully some news gets broken while we're live. I don't expect it will right now. I think the first move the Mets will make, as I said, prior to the weekend, would be still a reliever. So keep an eye on Andrew Chafin. If the Mets do a deal today, I think Andrew Chafin is that guy. That is the name I'm keeping an eye on just because that's been reported multiple times today. And again, if there are anything that you see out there regarding news on the Mets front, please let me know in the chat by tagging me on Twitter. Whatever you guys got to do, that's perfectly fine with me. Hold on, everybody. I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not missing anything on social right now. And for what it's worth, guys, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and again, Mets have continued their trade discussions with the Red Sox today and going forward. It was reported yesterday by Jim Bowden, and the following, and I quote, the Red Sox and Mets are talking about a trade that would send Martinez to Queens for Dominic Smith and a solid prospect. Now, I don't know if that deal would, of course, have Christian Vazquez along with him. However, it is interesting. Braves extended Austin Riley. Of course, they extended Austin Riley. The Braves. Oh my God. We don't need to talk about the Braves right now. Okay. Let me see here. I do know that it's been reported that the Mets have a reluctance, not just to part with the likes of Mark Vientos, but also Ronnie Mauricio, which I find a little surprising, even though that, yes, I know he's a top prospect. Alex Ramirez, who I completely understand. Ramirez is a guy that you gotta be wary of. Let's see. Martino, did he just tweet that regarding Martino? Let's see. Okay. Hold on. Two clubs who've talked. Oh, wait. No. Hold on. Never mind. That was from earlier. Yeah, no, just that we know that the Mets are reluctant to part with prospects. Wow, that's a big extension. Oh my God, the Braves stay getting the best freaking deals for their players. And this sucks for us Mets fans because, as we know, Austin Riley's a Mets killer, and now he's going to be a Mets killer for the next decade. He just signed a 10-year, $212 million contract extension to stay in Atlanta for quite literally the entirety of his career. Shit. That's all I got to say. That is all I got to say. That's a phenomenal deal. They locked up Acuna. They locked up Albies. They locked up Olsen. Man, oh man. I mean, the Braves, I will always give credit where credit's due. The Braves do a phenomenal job on keeping their guys that they want to keep, other than their captain and Freddie Freeman. But that's a discussion for another day. Insane deal. That's honestly, wow, that is a phenomenal deal. That's going to benefit the Braves more in the end than it would Riley. Because if Riley hit the market in a couple of years, whenever he's a free agent, I could easily see him getting more than $200. I could see Riley getting upwards of like 275 to 3 with inflation a couple of years from now. So yeah, they definitely got themselves a good deal. That is a discount. That's a hometown discount. The same way that the Olsen deal was fairly a discount. Same way that you see Albies and Acuna being the biggest steals known to man. Yeah, they have their 4 core pieces offensively locked up long-term for absolutely nothing in comparison to what the market is out there. So shout out to Braves and their fans. As much as that upsets me, that's a phenomenal move for them. Phenomenal move. Don't say inflation worry, says James. Why? Inflation's a real thing. I'm sorry if you guys want to shy away from reality, but it's happening. If you live in the United States of America, or quite literally most places, you know that's a thing. That good news is that's good news if it now makes deGrom affordable. If you're talking about for the Braves, Jake ain't going anywhere. Simply put, CD, thank you so much for that donation, but Jake is not going anywhere. Jake will not be an Atlanta Brave, I can assure you. Jake is coming back. I love the amount of Mets fans that think that there's no way in hell that Jake is coming back. You really think that Steve Cohen, guys, who said that his first big moment as a Mets fan was being heartbroken by the Mets giving up on Tom Seaver too soon, you really think he is going to allow Jacob deGrom, as long as Jake is healthy down the stretch, pitches his capabilities, and could be an X factor in the Mets having a deep run, if not potentially, doing that special thing with the shiny trophy at the end? If you think for 1 second that Steve Cohen is going to let Jake walk, I promise you will not happen. The only way that Jacob deGrom is not a New York Met next year is if Jacob deGrom says so. If Jake opts out but wants out of this organization, which too, find very hard to believe considering Jake is someone that signed at the time a team-friendly extension with the Mets a couple years ago. It was a big deal, over $100 million, yes, but it was team-friendly. He easily could have gotten a bigger bag on the market, but he decided to stay in-house with his schmuck Wilpons as owners. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, yeah, as long as Jake has a willingness to stay here, which I fully believe he does, so are the Mets in their pursuit of making sure that he's locked up. Jake is going to get a deal awfully similar to Max Scherzer, and that's exactly the reason why he's opting out. Jake looks at Max's 40-plus mil deal over 3 years, and he says, yeah, I'm getting that at minimum. And if Jake pitches to the dominant Jake caliber, he easily could get upwards of 50 mil a year. You guys might think it's outlandish, it's impossible. No, it's not. I can 1,000% see Jake gain between 40 and 50 mil per year on a mid-level deal between 3 and 5 years. That is not outlandish at all. That's what Jake is going to be looking for, and I 1,000% expect him to get that. If you guys think anything otherwise, I find that absolutely foolish. You're not paying attention. Anyone that's been following the Mets since day one know that you have nothing to be concerned about with the opt-out. But again, we'll get to the offseason. If things change, I'll come back to bite me in the ass. I completely understand that. I'll cry on camera for you all, depending on the situation. But for right now, at this point in time, I'm not concerned with Jake. The only thing I'm focused on with Jake is his health. I just hope that he stays healthy. That's all. Okay, guys, to my over 1,000 plus viewers here in the chat, we talked about JD Martinez and Christian Vazquez. We talked about the Red Sox wanting MLB level talent. Let's talk a little bit more on the Chicago Cubs. Because as I mentioned, the Padres are a real big player here, as are some other teams. I don't think the Astros are going to land Contreras. However, it would appear that the Braves just traded for Jock Pearson and Carlos Rodon. No, they didn't, Nathan. Stop it. If they did, then that would be insane. But that did not happen yet, at least. So no. Nathan, stop with the fake news. I'm sorry, guys. This is what I wanted to mention earlier, and I apologize for not doing it. My absolute favorite, one of my favorite players on the New York Mets this year, regardless on his lack of offensive production, Travis Jankowski is no longer a New York Met. Of course, DePoto, the schmuck that he is, at the helm as GM for the Seattle Mariners, did pick up Travis Jankowski in waivers. Janky is no longer a New York Met. He is now in the Seattle Mariners organization. It sucks. I wish him all the best, however. I absolutely loved Jankowski when he's here. Speed demon, great guy, phenomenal glove. Just that injury with his finger that derailed him like 2 months, that unfortunately was the X factor for him. So, yeah, I wish Jankowski the absolute best. Sucks. He also picked up Villar, of course he did. Or VR, not Villar. I don't know why I said Villar. It's VR. But yeah, I'm not surprised. They're picking up all the former Mets now. That's fine. I mean, they got Castillo. Let's see what they can do. I'm excited to see Castillo's debut, however, because that is going to be against the New York Yankees. And Montas. I'm excited to see when Montas is going to pitch for the Yanks. Oh, could you just imagine if Montas and Castillo matched up? I don't think they will, but that would be crazy. Let's see here. I did see a comment in the chat. Mets will not make any more position player moves. That is not factual. It's as simple as that. The Mets can, by all means, make offensive acquisitions without giving up the farm. Literally, there's so many lesser, B-tier options for the Mets outside of Contreras, outside of JD Martinez, outside of Josh Bell, even if he is still in the works. There's so many other bad options for the Mets. I promise you they are going to add position players. I will go as far as to say I guarantee you that they will add position players. So we'll see what happens. What would it take for the Mets to get Jock? Jock has no fit on the Mets right now. Jock Peterson is a lefty bat, quarter outfielder / DH. The Mets literally have that now in Naquin and Bogey. They do not need Peterson, who does not hit lefties well. No room for Jock Peterson. If they didn't land what we saw in Daniel Vogelbach and Naquin, then I would agree with you. But the Mets already have those lefties figured out. I love Vogelbach. Everyone loves Vogelbach right now. So, yeah, I mean, Jock Peterson makes 0 sense for the Mets now. Mets will trade Dom. I fully expect them to trade Dom. And I think Dom is almost a complete lock to go to, again, either the Red Sox or the Cubs. They both like him. They both really like him quite a bit, more than people seem to realize. So I think that the Mets are going to be in a good spot partying with him as one of multiple assets to get a deal done. But what I will say is that if the Mets find themselves in a spot right now where you have Andrew Chafin, hypothetically, as a first move that the Mets make, right? Let's just discuss this for a second. You have Andrew Chafin as the first move that the Mets make. If the Mets' first move is Andrew Chafin, I feel that the Mets will not land David Robertson then. I could be wrong. I would not be surprised if the Mets only land one reliever. With Trevor May coming back and with Tyler McGill and David Pearson both expect to be in the bullpen for the Mets, they pretty much have everything figured out there. I don't think that they're going to do... Could they add 2 relievers? Yes, they could. But if they land Chafin first, I think that tells me that they're getting away from the package type deal. I know that's what the Cubs really want to do. So maybe that means that if they do Chafin that, Contreras isn't as likely. Or maybe it makes it even a little bit more likely knowing that they can just hone in on Contreras himself and potentially, or I should say, a JD Martinez, right? So a lot of people are ragging on Trevor May sucking, guys. Trevor May, I assure you, will be one of the better relievers in the Mets bullpen. He doesn't suck. Do I trust him in every high leverage situation? Of course I don't. But it suggests that Trevor May is not a good reliever is just absolutely foolish. Look at the numbers. They'll tell you what you need to know. He will be a positive impact on this Mets bullpen. So, by all means, feel free to rant away. The exact same way that almost every single comment that I got when the Mets acquired Daniel Vogelbach it was a completely lopsided trade. Vogelbach with 228 average is an absolute bum because all you casuals don't focus on the numbers that matter most and how they're going to be utilized with the Mets. Vogelbach comes in as a righty specialist. What is he doing? He's raking against righties. I know, color me shocked. Again, just focus on what the Mets are bringing these guys in for. It will not take you long to realize that what they're doing is strong moves and some internal moves will be good for them. I think David Pearson's going to transition the bullpen just fine, even with him getting rocked a little bit. I think Tyler McGill's going to be an absolute stud, a bulldog in the bullpen, as either a multi-inning reliever or a guy that can come in as be that one-inning shutdown. And Joe Ellie I agree. I liked the move for Joe Ellie originally. Castro hasn't worked out well for the Yanks. Joe Ellie has not worked out for the Mets. The biggest issue with Joe Ellie heading into the season, guys, was his walk rate. The same thing that we had with Adam Ottavino. The Mets combated the walk rate for Adam Ottavino. However, they were not able to do it with Joe Ellie. Joe Ellie can't hit the strike zone if it smacked him across the face. And that's why Joe Ellie's not going to be in the Mets bullpen for much longer if I had to go on a limb and say. Hold on, guys. I'm going to put up a poll here in the live chat for the next half hour before we wrap up the show. I want to know what you guys think. Still want Wilmer Flores for bench. Flores makes a little no sense, Dave, mainly because Wilmer is not doing well. He's doing nothing crazy against lefties. There's so many better bats out there than Wilmer Flores right now for the Mets. And guys that have more defensive versatility. Brandon Drury might not be a stud defensively, but he has defensive versatility and can rake against lefties. Kyle Farmer, a guy that, again, can play in positions rakes against lefties. There's a lot of lefty killers out there that are Wilmer Flores level that are better players right now than Wilmer Flores. Even Darren Ruff. I feel like Darren Ruff does well against lefties. I don't know how he's doing this year, but I know that historically in his career he has. Guys, we have 1,000 viewers and we have 238 likes. Thank you so much, guys. Help us. We're trying to get 500 likes by the end of the show if possible. If half of you guys just hit that like and subscribe button, it'd be really appreciated as we're trying to get 17K subs for the next short-term goal on the channel. Make sure to check out my Bleav in Queens podcast here on the YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Myself, Joe Serralo, and former New York Met, now MLB Network analyst and Apple TV analyst, Anthony Recker, coming at you. We will have another new podcast out right around Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning Eastern. We'll be out as we break down all the moves for the Mets, break down Max Scherzer and deGrom's debut, how they did in the National Series, and look ahead. You guys are saying Rosenthal. Let's check Rosenthal. Oh, shit. Here we go. Okay. This is kind of what I expected, folks. Christian Vazquez is, in fact, not going to the New York Mets, guys. Christian Vazquez just got traded to the Houston Astros. Boom. We literally just talked about it like 20 minutes ago. Not even. So, yeah, Vazquez makes perfect sense for the Boston Red Sox. And honestly, I'm not complaining, guys, because this is a good thing. This lets the Mets focus all in on JD Martinez from Boston. Focus all in on that bat. It'll be cheaper than doing the package. And two, the Mets want to go all in on Contreras. Should the Padres not swoop in and take a Contreras Hap deal, potentially, the Mets have their focus. Perfectly fine. Not concerned. I like Vazquez as a backup option if they weren't able to land Contreras. So, Vazquez, wishing you all the best, buddy. Good luck in Houston. But yeah, this is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. So honestly, I kind of like that just because I feel like the chances of the Mets getting Contreras are greater now. That it really feels that way. That or JD Martinez. You know, JD's by himself now. You're not doing a package for Boston. So this is good. Do I prefer Martinez or Contreras? I would probably say Contreras when evaluating what he brings as a guy that can catch and also a guy that can DH. And you can probably still bring Robertson with him. I like that package idea, even though it'll be more expensive. But for Martinez, I like Martinez because I think that Martinez's price will drop. I think he's just perfect for what the Mets would be looking for right now. And again, a DH that can rake, be in the lineup every 2 or 3 days. But yeah, let me put it this way. Vazquez going to Boston. I don't have it on the graphic right now, but that's perfectly fine. Don't know what Epler is cooking. Just wait and see, Brandall. Trust me, he's cooking. I'm excited to see what he's going to land with. All right, guys, let me know in the chat. Everyone, let me know in the live chat right now. What's your reaction to this trade with Vazquez going to the Astros? Are you happy? Are you bummed about it? Let me know. Obviously, a package deal would have been enticing with Boston. However, if this gives the Mets a better chance to either land Martinez or land Contreras, sign me the hell up. That's what I say. So let me know in the chat, guys. Let me know what your reaction is to Christian Vazquez just being traded from the Boston Red Sox now to the Houston Astros. Astros landed Mancini and Vazquez. Not going to lie, those are moves that I would not have complained with that the Mets made because, you know, they land that DH/first baseman and they land that backstop. I really want Contreras. I really want Contreras. I would go head over heels if the Mets land both Contreras and Martinez. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more of the other. However, I do think that especially if the Mets do land Contreras, they could still be in the works for one more bat should they wish to a lesser degree. I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get a Brandon Drury, to get a Kyle Farmer. Again, more guys that rake against lefties should you wish. So, very interesting options for the Mets right now, but I like it. I like what they're doing. I'm not complaining. Don't think the Mets land anybody besides Scrubs. Well, I think you're going to be in for a pleasant surprise, Jason, but I guess we'll wait and see. Not getting anybody to watch. Bobby, I'll keep watching, my friend. I'm sure you were the same schmuck that said the Mets wouldn't get anyone in the offseason, right? Yeah, Max Scherzer, Starling Marte, Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, Buck Showalter. They all say otherwise. Get out of here with that nonsense. Who's going to be our catcher if we land JD Martinez? I would imagine that the Mets either stay with their current backstops or they trade for the catcher that was just made on the market and Omar Narvaez. If I'm saying his name right. No, or Narvaez, one of the two. I would say he would be a catcher to keep an eye on if the Mets really want to add, some more depth there. That isn't Contreras. Bring back Wilmer. Doubtful. Mets have better options out there that are similar to Wilmer but are better. Wardy, Mets not doing nothing. I agree the Mets are not doing nothing. The Mets will surely do something. Can we trade McCann if you eat the majority of his contract? That's probably the only way that you can swing that one. All right, let me get in the chat right now. Let's get a poll up, guys. Bear with me. And guys, we're 200 likes away from 500 in the live chat. Thank you so much. Continue smashing those buns. Greatly appreciate it. I'm going to put in the poll, guys, what player you guys want the most. Let's see here. Oh, hey, Jack. Thank you so much for becoming a captain member. I appreciate you so much. Hype in the chat to you, hey, Jack. Greatly appreciate you, my friend. Hype in the chat. Okay, let's see. Thomas with the $4 donation. Thank you kindly for that, Thomas. Greatly appreciate you. Contreras, Martinez. I'm trying to think if there's one more name. Like, one more big name. All right, let's just throw Bell in there, because why not? Because he's still available. Okay, guys, we got the poll in. Make sure to hit the poll. I want to see where your guys' votes are going to be in there. You want big sexy? Marin, thank you so much for the dono. Yep, I saw that about Christian Vazquez, and that's fine. The only thing I need to do now, once I get off live, is change a pre-made thumbnail I made to originally I had Christian Vazquez and JD Martinez on it, and if Blockbuster happens. So if that doesn't happen, that's perfectly fine. Well, it's not happening now, so I just need to make it where it's just Martinez now and not him and Vazquez. So I'm gonna go update that after the live show. Worry how it do? What's up, my man? Shout out to you, Mellow, great member. Can't lie. At the moment, I'm not happy if we get Martinez alone. I'm a little worried. I wouldn't be upset if the Mets got Martinez alone as long as they still add to the bullpen. I would be upset if the Mets didn't add to the bullpen at all, but only got Martinez. But the Mets are. I think the Mets are actually guaranteed to add to the bullpen far more than any other position, if I'm being honest here. But yeah, thank you so much for the dono. I appreciate that, my friend. Great member on the channel. Hold on, guys. I'm checking more updates as we're talking live, as news has just happened that Christian Vazquez is, in fact, no longer a Boston Red Sox, but a Houston Astro.